Plus. I'm James, and this is the Toyota GR Yaris. Woo! Jesus! Oh my God! Sorry, just let me gather my senses. Why am I driving a nearly 4-year-old performance car? Well, the answer's twofold. Firstly, believe it or not, I've never driven a Yaris GR product before. This is the first time for me, so I just wanted to finally get behind the wheel of one and I guess answer the other part of my question, which is this thing still worthy of the hype nearly 4 years after it was unveiled and later released in late 2020? I'm not really going to bury the lead there. This thing is very, very worthy of the hype, even nearly 4 years later. The keen-eyed among you will notice that this isn't the update. We're actually not getting that in Australia until the first quarter of 2025. So for now, this is the only GR Yaris available, and oh my God, it's just staggering. Anyway, I guess we better sort of go back a bit, and for the few people that don't know what this car's about, have just been living under a rock for the last 4 years, try and explain what it is. Essentially, this car is the result of Akio Toyoda, the former president and CEO of Toyota, and his band of brilliant Gazoo racing engineers wanting to create a car to go rallying in. This isn't your normal hot hatch. Oh no, this is something very different. Woo! Essentially, this car is a homologation special. It was a rally car first, then a road car, which instantly makes it one of the coolest things on sale today at any price point. I can't even think when the last homologation special rally focused car came out from any one of the big Japanese OEMs. It's been a really long time, and it's such a unique thing. Toyota-san and his engineers went about it in such a unique way. This car is just this inimitable amalgam of parts coming together to create something truly beguiling. So we've got the front end from a Yaris, but we've got the back end from a Corolla, and it's been held together with a bespoke carbon concaved roof. And the net result, well, visually, it looks like a meatball, but crucially, to drive, it's like a meatball drowning in sriracha sauce. This thing, is spicy. Now, a huge part of that spiciness is this car's engine. It was first launched in the GR Yaris, and it's like the rest of the car, it's such a unique, pugnacious little thing. So what it is a 1.6 litre 3-cylinder turbo, producing 200 kilowatts and 370 newton meters. That is a huge amount of punch from such a small displacement engine, and it's just a fizzy little thing, and it just lends itself so well to this car's overall character. You would be mistaken for thinking that it's something from sort of the golden era of homologation special cars from the 90s and early 2000s. This motor is so boosty. You've got to wait for the power to come on. There is some actual turbo lag going on. That's not a bad thing. I really enjoy it. Until about 3,000 RPM, there's not too much happening. And then when that red needle does flick above 3,000, you've just got this awesome surge of turbo torque, and it doesn't stop until you get to about 6,500. The red line goes all the way out to 7,000, but it does die a little bit at the top end. But yeah, in any gear, as long as it's between 3,000 and 6,500 RPM, this thing hauls. It's ridiculous. 0 to 100's dealt with in a claimed 5.2 seconds. I have no reason to doubt those figures. This thing feels very, very fast in gear. It's a really characterful little engine. Under throttle, you've just got this fantastic induction noise, and you've got these whooshes, and when you let off the throttle, you've got these whistles from the wastegate. Sadly, the exhaust is not giving me the same histrionics. It is a bit of a shame because I know what these cars sound like with an aftermarket exhaust, and when things are freed up and you've got, you know, different downpipes and maybe a different cell cat and everything like that, these engines give a wonderful, unique exhaust note. But stock, we've just got quite a lot of that quintessential turbo hot hatch whistle. It sounds like a Dyson essentially in overdrive. It's not like the end of the world, but it would have been nice if the exhaust could have offered the same level of theatricality as the engine itself. This very unique engine is sending its power, all of its oomph, to all four wheels via a 6-speed manual transmission. And I know that the updated Yaris is going to have an 8-speed automatic, and I'm sure it's going to be good. I can't wait to drive it. But if, you know, for the last 3.5 years, this 6-speed manual's been the only option, and that is no bad thing. It is a brilliant manual gearbox. It is short, the throw, it is notchy, and you've got to be a bit of a thug with it. You can't be too delicate. It's like a microcosm for the rest of this car. You've got to be heavy-handed with the shifts, and then it's really positive, and I love that. It is a little bit tricky. The gates seem quite close together, so there's been a couple times where I've thought if you were really on it on a track or a rally stage, you might not want to rush the box a little bit too much. But yeah, the manual box is such a brilliant thing to interact with. Crucially as well, this car is quite shortly geared, so you're constantly having to do something in this car. You're constantly having to shift on a twisty road, and it just lends itself to the fizzy, sort of frenetic nature of this car. The 3 pedals that you interact with, they're great as well. They're really well spaced for heel toe, which is appreciated. They're also well spaced for some left foot braking if you're into that sort of thing. If you aren't super great at heel toe, or if you are a little bit irked by the seating position in this car, which I'll talk about later, the GR Yaris does have an auto blip function for the manual. I've used it a number of times, and I think on the whole I probably prefer it to heel toeing myself. It just means we've got one less thing to focus on, really. I know, sacrilegious of me to say that. So power's sent to all 4 wheels in this car in the Rally with a Torsen limited slip diff on the front axle and on the rear axle. And I've not driven the standard GR Yaris, but I would imagine that having the diffs open at the front and rear would be a little bit compromising compared to what this car can offer. Feeling this car just eke our grip from the road in any condition, whether it's dry, wet, greasy, or loose surfaces, these diffs work amazingly well. So you've got 3 mode to send the power wherever you want, essentially. Normal will send 60% to the front and 40% to the rear. Sport, which is my favorite, will send 30% of the power to the front and 70% to the rear. So that's really enjoyable. And then finally, track is a 50-50 split for power on the front and rear axle, which I can understand why that's the case for track. If you haven't driven many sort of short wheelbase, 4-wheel drive turbo cars, this thing is, yeah, it takes a second to understand what it's about. You can't drive it like a normal front-wheel drive hot hatch, but once you understand how to get the best out of it, like I'm trying to right now, oh yeah, it's just bloody awesome. It is different though, so I guess in conjunction with the slightly higher ride height, which sort of harks back to, you know, this thing being a homologation rally special. It doesn't corner super flat. You've sort of got to be quite aggressive with your steering inputs and get this car into the corner and then wait for it to settle on its suspension. And then once it does that, once it is settled, then you can just plant the gas and this thing tears you around corners. Yeah, like few other cars I've experienced, especially I've not driven another hatchback like this. It is just completely unique. Yeah, I suppose we probably should speak about the suspension. So as I alluded to before, because it's been designed as a rally car first, there's more travel in the suspension than I initially expected, and the ride height is actually a little bit higher than you would expect of a hot hatch traditionally. So when you're on your favorite twisty B road with some bumps and dips and corners and cambers, you almost feel at times like there's a little bit too much vertical movement happening. But you just need to understand what this car is designed for. And really, and I suppose we can talk about it now, where this car truly excels, oh my goodness, where this car truly excels is on loose surfaces, on a dirt road. This is where the GR Yaris is an almost sui generis experience. It is nuts how good it is. And really that makes this car perfect for Australian roads, because there's over 500,000 kilometres of unsealed dirt and loose roads in Australia. Unsealed roads equate for more than half of all the roads in this country, and that's where this car excels. It just, you can instantly tell as soon as you get on dirt that, yeah, this thing is a rally car. This isn't some marketing BS. This isn't a hot hatch with, you know, some slightly jacked up suspension. No, this is a bespoke rally car that was designed as such. The GR Yaris has got a completely bespoke rear suspension architecture. It's got trailing double wishbones at the rear. And the sophistication and the way this thing deals with direction changes and bumps and dips on a dirt road and working in conjunction with that four-wheel drive system, it is just such a fun thing to drive. And depending on what mode you've got it in as well, there is a playfulness that you can't really get to on the road. On the road, this car is dominated by a sense of grip and just being able to tear around corners at any speed. On dirt though, especially if you've got it in sport mode where you're sending 70% of torque to the rear, there is a playfulness to this car, and we shot some of this car on dirt so you could see what it's like, and you can just get into these situations where you're having these beautiful yaw moments around corners where you're steering with the throttle and you're, yeah, I guess reveling in a rear bias four-wheel drive system, and it's just spellbinding. It gets under your skin so well. I should probably talk about as well the tyres on this car, because I can imagine Toyota would have had quite a difficult task on their hand finding a tyre that needed to cover all of the bases like the rest of this car sort of does. And they've gone for a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyre, and it is a great tyre. So it's a 225 40/18 squared all round, and they're wrapped around some really attractive looking BBS forged alloy wheels. And it doesn't really matter if you're in the dry or if you're in the wet or if it's greasy or if you're on a loose surface, these Michelins have a great amount of grip. And unless you were gonna be on a racetrack or doing, you know, endless tarmac rallies, these tyres are perfect for this car. Steering in this car is interesting. Like the gear change, you need to sort of be I guess, a little bit heavy-handed with it. It's not super light, the steering. There's some good weight to it, and you sort of need to be quite forthright with your inputs. It doesn't really like the delicate thing too much, which, yeah, you know, once again, just suits the pugnacious nature of this car. It's not brimming with feel, but it's an E-Pass system, so it's never really gonna be. But yeah, you get into a rhythm with this car, and that's a good thing, because initially when you jump in the car, even though you're sitting stupidly high, you can't actually see the front bonnet really at all. All I can see is windscreen, and then that's pretty much it. So initially when you're driving this car, it's quite hard to place on the road, but thanks to, you know, the steering being faithful, and, you know, once you get used to it, it is quite an easy car to place. Toyota has done this steering wheel perfectly. It is quite a small diameter wheel. It is perfectly spherical. There's no flat bottoms or nonsense or anything like that. And perhaps most importantly, it's not too thick, it's not too girthy, it is just right. And it is massively appreciated. I'm sick of driving performance cars with ridiculously thick steering wheels and, you know, big bulbous parts where your thumbs are meant to rest. It's just totally unnecessary. This steering wheel in this car is great. Another strong component of the car is the brakes. They are punchy, to say the least. So they're a 4-piston caliper up front with a 356 millimeter 2-piece floating disc. At the rear, it's a 2-piston caliper and a 297 mil 1-piece disc. These brakes are strong. The car only weighs 1,280 kilograms, so, you know, it's a proper featherweight in this day and age. There's not a lot to stop, but yeah, this thing pulls up really quick, and the pedal itself is quite firm, and it feels tough. So, you know, you've got to get into the pedal and sort of modulate it a little bit to get it to stop, which is quite nice. It's not like a binary thing, like you breathe on it and it throws you through the front windscreen. The car's not perfect though. I suppose we probably need to speak about some of its shortcomings, and I guess first and foremost, the seating position. I'm 6'2", I've got a longer torso as well. Even in its lower seating position, this seat is too high. If I go over a significant compression or bump in the road, I've hit my head a couple of times on that bespoke carbon roof, and it's not super enjoyable when that happens. And I just don't understand why you need to be sitting so high, especially considering, like I said before, you can't see out that well. There's no getting away from the fact as well that although this car commands a $62,000 price tag, the interior overall, it feels like an economy car. It feels in places a little bit low rent. There's some scratchiness to some of these plastics, which I guess is a little bit disappointing considering the price tag. That being said though, you know, in the same way that Evos or Imprezas of the past felt a little bit back to basics, this car sort of has that same sort of vibe, so maybe some people will like that. I guess another thing that's not perfect is the amount of road noise in the cabin for this car as well. Australian roads are largely sort of coarse chip and they're not the best quality, and yeah, I haven't measured it, but there's definitely some decibels going on right now inside this cabin. Like I said before, it's a lightweight car. It's only 1,280 kilos, and the bonnet, the doors, and the boot, they're all aluminium. So 1,280 kilos and all these lightweight components, and a distinct lack of sound deadening in places. There's a lot of road noise in the cabin. The visibility in the car is pretty hilarious. You know, the windscreen is a million miles away from you, and the rear vision mirror comes down halfway essentially to your vision out, your line of sight out, and then the sat nav's also rising up as well, so it's almost like I've got a halo in the middle of the car or something like that. It's it is very quirky. Rear visibility is also pretty compromised, especially when you're sort of reversing and you want to look out of the C-pillar as well. It is, yeah, the visibility is pretty flawed. But I guess all of these shortcomings, all of these flaws, they just make the car more endearing. It's, I guess if you think about it like this, your favorite mates, your best mates, the ones that make you laugh the most and are the most fun to be around, chances are they're deeply flawed characters as well. There's so many idiosyncrasies and quirks to this car, but it just makes it more lovable. I adore this thing. I've spent a fair bit of time in it now, and it's just such a unique experience. There's no other car like this on sale today. Quite literally, name me another two-door hatchback with four-wheel drive, a turbo 3-cylinder motor and a 6-speed manual box with 2 diffs over the front and rear axle. Like, it's crazy this car exists, and it's really good. So I guess, yeah, in summation, does the GR Yaris live up to the hype nearly 4 years after it was first launched? Absolutely it does. This is an experience like pretty much nothing else on the road. You can tell that it's been designed as a rally car first, and it is all the better for it. It is such an enjoyable thing to drive on a twisty road, and like I was saying before, on a loose surface, on dirt. It's peerless. It's in a class of 1. There's nothing else I'd rather be in short of a 911 Dakar, let's say. This thing is like the ultimate 24/7, 365 weekend warrior. This is a car that I would absolutely have in my garage as part of a car collection if I had the cash for it. And you could take it out to your favorite twisty road anytime, day or night, in any weather condition, and just have an absolute blast. Anyway, I've just been waffling on for absolutely ages now about how good this thing is. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. We'll have some other GR products coming to the channel quite soon, but if you haven't already liked this video, please subscribe to the channel because it really does help, and leave a comment down below about what you would like to see me drive next. Bye for now. Woo!